So I did put that link I was telling you about on motivation, that TED Talk. It's kind of old, like a 2009, but the research stuff is good and the conversation is pretty good. So it's out there for you guys to take a look at if you guys want to. Okay, so we'll go ahead and keep pounding away here. We still got more theories to go. Again, just to recap, we did theory X and Y, Maslow, Herzberg, Hawthorne effect. Okay, all those are different theories. We still got more to go. One's called the expectancy theory. And again, I think we've seen this in action, but employees will exert a given amount of energy based on what the expectation of the outcome is. And so I think you see this, you see it a lot where people are maybe lack confidence in their ability to do the task. So if they're not really sure whether they're going to be able to do it well or not, then they don't really fully commit and they don't really put a lot of work into it, and it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So they got a little slide here, that just basically says, hey, if I get the task accomplished, what outcomes will I get? Is that reward worth it? So even if I can't accomplish it, but I don't get any recognition or the outcome's not worth it, then I'm less motivated. You guys see this in action some? Yeah. Again, not any one of these is the single perfect theory. It's just a blend of all of them that starts to get you to understand motivation. It's clearly a pretty complex topic.
Especially this one, not the expectancy theory, but without the reward being known, just a chance of, another door being open.
Promotion or something?
Well, not necessarily, maybe promotion or just a lateral move in the company, if you do, okay, you're gonna be put in this position for a certain period of time, and, nobody's telling you, depending upon your performance, this may or may not, just you thinking or knowing that the potential is there for that to happen, just causes you to work that much harder, but
Yeah, so
that much more effort.
wasn't following you to the very end there. So you're saying that if even though it maybe isn't totally written down, if there's kind of a history of people getting promoted or getting some sort of recognition, and so I believe there's something out there, even though it hasn't really been promised to me in any way, shape, or form,
Right.
that the expectancy of that positive result is now going to motivate me to do a little more work.
Yes.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. So these guys just modified this expectancy theory, and I like number one. I found when I had my own business, man, I tried everything. I tried profit sharing, I tried bonuses, I tried, the Jelly of the Month Club, and what I found was, even in my little small business.
What is the Jelly of the Month?
You don't remember that from Christmas Vacation?
I've never.
You never seen Christmas Vacation?
Sorry.
Oh man, anybody?
Oh, yeah, National Lampoon's.
Oh yeah.
I'm drawing a blank though.
Oh yeah, you guys gotta go watch Christmas Vacation. It's one of the best.
Now I have to.
It's one of the best comedies ever of all time. But so he's expecting to get this big year-end bonus because he thought he did pretty well and all that. And he's basically already spec'd out a pool. He's even kind of told his wife he's going to get the pool, and he doesn't. And the bonus check doesn't come, and what he ends up getting is the Jelly of the Month Club. So like they mail him a new jelly every month, and he was hoping to get thousands of dollars of cash.
You got Jelly.
He got jelly instead, and so then he abducted his boss, and gets really funny. It's good stuff. So I have found, even in my small business, which maybe I had maybe 5 to 8 people on the inside, and then all my drivers were different. The 5 to 8 people, you couldn't even, you get 2 or 3. Hey, do you want a cash bonus, or do you want a party? What, or do you want your name said over the loudspeaker? And everybody's different, and. So one of the first steps is to go, well, let me see if I can just figure out what motivates my employees. Because you might find some that they don't need any cash at all. What they want is for you to say, nice job. You're like, okay, I can do that. That's a hell of a lot cheaper than scratching you a check. So you got to start to figure that out. So number one is really important. And then you got to begin to figure out, number two, how am I going to grade them? And this is where it gets really difficult. Because how much time am I willing to put in to try to come up with some sort of evaluation standard, and so you just get so busy with just trying to do your job that you don't have time to go down and grade everyone's job all the time. And so then, in the absence of this formal grading system, because you're too busy to put it together, or it's too complex, or I don't have the data, or all the above, then you end up just winging it. Well, then that doesn't work either, because now I'm not fair. It's not perceived to be equitable. And so the people I like, maybe they get their reward and the other people don't, or maybe I don't really think Johnny's going to quit anyway. So if I'm going to skip anybody this week, it's going to be Johnny. You know, so it's so much more difficult to put into practice than it is to sit around and talk about like this, because everybody's so busy. So again, you'd like to have those rewards tied to performance, but it can be tough. What if somebody else is? What if it's a group setting or a team setting? Do I reward the entire team? Yeah, okay, that's good, because that rewards teamwork and team building. But what about the deadbeats on the team? And now you got the same reward. Now the rest of my team left unchecked. The rest of my team's going to get demotivated because they got a deadbeat they're carrying around all the time. So it's so much harder to actually do. Reinforcement theory is kind of old school parenting, you know. Positive reinforcement, kid's going to do more of whatever he's been reinforced for. Operant conditioning is the other way they call it. So we volunteer for this service dog training, and I've raised all my dogs, you know, with real heavy hand, you know, pinch collar, you know, punishment, negative reinforcement, and their entire training structure is positive reinforcement, operant conditioning. If you want them to do something, give them a treat. If they don't do it, you ignore them, right? And so then you're treating this dog nonstop, and of course, what's the dog figure out? Okay, I can do more of that then, you know. Same concept here. So the use of negative or positive reinforcement, and then extinction is what I was saying with the dog. Like, if the dog's barking, you actually don't correct the dog at all, you ignore the dog. That's what extinction is. So extinction is ignoring this behavior that we really want to go away.
How would that work in the workforce? How does that, I don't understand how that would even be possible.
I think the one example that jumps in my head is like when you have like team drama and, you know, people are angry or fighting or whatever, you might choose to not even engage that, ignore it, you know, rather than get in and punish or reward or punish, and now you've sucked yourself into the middle of it. You might just be like, let's hope that just goes away, and, you know, don't make it a bigger deal. You know, because sometimes those people, that's what they're looking for, right? Is that additional attention?
Yeah.
And if no one's giving it to them, maybe they'll find a different way to try to get attention. But negative reinforcement, you got to be, again, obviously really careful. You got to make sure that the biggest mistake I've found is you did not effectively communicate expectations, and yet you're punishing someone for not meeting expectations. And very easy for somebody to go, that's on you, brother. I told you. I didn't know. And if they truly didn't know, that's not their fault. That's your fault. And yet you're standing there ready to punish them. So it really can hurt your street cred if you're too quick to use that punishment, and yet you've not really. And so what I've done is, like the whole, what I do with my truckers, for instance, so in my trucking business, everyone we hired was brand new. They'd never driven a truck before in their life. So they're husband-wife teams, and they don't even have the CDL, and I got to train them how to physically drive the truck, but I also got to train them how to run their business. You know, these people haven't been away from home. They got to learn how to be away from home 3 weeks at a time. So a lot of training. And what I found over my time doing that was anything I wanted them to really know, I had to tell them 3 times in 3 different ways. So anything you wanted to know, you had to talk to them about it. Then they had to go out and experience it, and then you had to come back to them again, you know, in some other third way, another person, you know, whatever. So, and then you have a shot for them to actually remember it and know it and do it. So, be aware of before you go into negative reinforcement if you've actually made clear what they need to be doing. I like the equity theory a lot. This is that one we touched on earlier. I think we all have a little scale in our head, and even though we may not know exactly what everybody makes, we got a rough idea. And that scale, if it's balanced up, you forget about it. But the moment you start coming to work and that scale's off, and you're thinking, man, those guys are making more than me, and man, they ain't working hard, and man, it starts jacking you up, gets in your head, and you start thinking about it more than you should, and then you're getting spiteful and frustrated, and so then you start doing the book calls Deviant Work Behaviors, right? So you're like, I'm taking that soda then, I don't care. I'm stealing postage. I'm coming in late, I don't care. Right? Because you're trying to balance those scales, right? To make sure things are equitable. And, you know, Frank touched on a big one is seniority. There's a lot of people who really value seniority and think a person with more seniority should make more money. There's a lot of people who go, I don't care if he's been here forever. I'm better at my job than him. I actually produce more than he does, right? And so it can be, you can see how there could be, you could have those perceived inequities even when you're trying your best not to have them. Anybody experience that one? No?
My dispatch officer makes like $22 an hour, and that's the only job she knows.
Yeah.
And it's one of the easiest jobs there is. She just sits there and answers the phone.
She's been there a long time though?
Yeah, like 26 years.
That's why, yeah.
It's just terrible. I mean, she'll be on her phone all day, have a great conversation. I like the woman, you know what I mean? She's a great time, but when it comes to work, like, I mean.
She's coasting.
Yeah, and it was like, so we had the supervisor, coordinator, office acting coordinator, and literally, I was doing like 5 jobs at once, and like, she couldn't even read the email, answer the phone, pull me up a spec, so I know what I'm looking for out there running around checking my head cut off. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
she won't process, she won't receive, she can't confirm pics, so I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm like,
Come on.
yeah, what?
Let's go.
But she hasn't been taught that. It's
Yeah.
just like, you should need to press that issue. You should be more valuable in the sense, you should be able to do more. You've been here
Yeah.
longer, but they touch base on it, you know, they value seniority.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
And then one day, you know, she won't be there and she won't be able to get another job for half of what she's making now,
Sir.
and she'll wonder why.
And
I had my dad, bought a house on this kind of a rock quarry, like a kind of a retired rock quarry, and they were gonna turn it into like this development. The guy who ran the like concrete place out of that same rock quarry lived right next to him. He was an old dude. And my dad was talking to him one day, and he's like, my concrete drivers, they're threatening to go on strike in their union. And he's like, man, I can't, I mean, I'm paying these guys, I don't know what it was, you know, $26 an hour or something to drive these concrete trucks. He's like, I can't pay them anymore. And this is going on, and they weren't on strike yet, but it's just kind of leading up to it. Well, that quarry was done. Like they tapped it out, and they'd already built a new quarry that they're gonna start working out of. So he actually opened a brand new concrete company at the new quarry, didn't tell anybody, and these cats went on strike, and he just closed the whole business down and started his other business. And you're like, man, that's Bush League. These guys have worked there, blah, blah, blah. So that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is some of these guys couldn't read or write. Couldn't read or write, but because they've been there 25 years, they deserved another 50 cents an hour, and he went, I ain't paying it. And now they're on the street trying to figure out how to get another job, and they can't read or write. So, yeah, gotta keep it real, bro. So we're kind of done with theories here. Now they're talking about some actual techniques to try to increase motivation. Motivation? Yeah. So job enrichment. Job enrichment is trying to get them more engaged in the job, get them to care about the job, understand why the job matters, understand how that job's going to lead to something else for them. That whole enrichment experience, making the job a little bit deeper than just, you know, something simple. We'll come back to some of these. So when if and when you listen to that Dan Pink TED Talk, he's going to talk about autonomy. What's autonomy? It's a key work characteristic. The presence of autonomy is a positive thing for most people, but a lot of times we don't know what that word means. Yeah. So autonomy is more independence, accountability for results. All lie within inside you. So I'm autonomous. I can work independently and get things done and actually get things accomplished. People want that sort of responsibility, I think. Now, they don't want it if they haven't been trained and taught how to deal with it and it's above their skill set. but assuming that they have the skills to process and deal with it, then they want that autonomy. What is task significance?
What their job means to them.
Close, task identity would be knowing which job it is. Task significant is you're close, but there's another piece to it.
Importance of the job, like, you're talking about an emotional level, like you're emotionally.
You're close, that's a component of it, but who else? The task significance is trying to get you to connect your task to the customer, to the finished product. So the more significant my task is, then I have an awareness of it really matters, not just because you told me I need to do it, it really matters because I see why,
Yeah.
okay? And and what these are saying is that the more these are present, the more motivated you're gonna be. So task identity is I need to know what I need to go do. We've all been in those situations where maybe things were in a hurry and you kind of got thrown to the wolves and you don't even really know what you're supposed to be doing, but you're there, right? Very stressful, you know, so to the extent that we can teach you, starts with your job description, right? Ideally, we wrote out a job description before you hired in, but even then, we're giving you constant feedback so you know what task you're supposed to be doing. Skill variety is saying, how diverse is the tasks that I'm getting accomplished? Do I use lots of different skills, or do I just use that skill? Because if I just use that skill, it's going to be a little demotivating, right? So skill variety adds motivation. And then feedback, obviously, am I getting reaffirmed that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm doing it well enough, that I'm doing it on time? So feedback becomes real important. And I think, so again, you listen to that Dan Pink, he's gonna cover a lot of these too. He only does 1/3 of the 3 topics he believes is motivation. Job enlargement is now, it's really just an enrichment strategy where we're trying to combine maybe one task with another so that you're not just always doing the one thing and you never get to see some level of completion. So job enlargement. The other thing that happens inside job enlargement is a lot of times you're given more responsibility. And again, people like that. So when you again, if done properly and you're ready and you have time and capability of doing it, and I add responsibility to you, most people go, awesome, that's good, I feel better. You know, that I matter more or have more satisfaction. Job rotation, again, happening, I know out here with Subaru, it has to happen sometimes because you can't get away from it. Sometimes some jobs are just that. And it's like, man, I can't do that for 8 hours a day. It's gonna drive me batty, or hurt my body, or whatever. And so you go into a job rotation setup where we're trying to get somebody that, again, you gotta be competent at the other rotation, but hopefully it's using a slightly different skill set to try to improve your satisfaction. Enrichment by way of flexibility, I did this a lot. Again, I paid, because I was a small business, I paid right on the lower side of the market, but tried to make it up with lots of other benefits, and we'll talk about some of these. But one of them for me was a lot more flexibility. So I had a single mom that worked for me. You know, she could bring her kid to school, work if she had to. If he was sick, she could work from home if she needed to, you know, without taking days off or using up her vacation. So just trying to provide that flexibility. So 66% people would take a lower paying job and it came with more flexibility. I'm living that out right now. I got a really low paying job, but I'm very flexible. So I had with my MBA program, you know, way back when, they had chalkboards, I think still have, but I had an organizational leadership teacher teach me something that really stuck with me. And the whole point he made was communication is never the problem. And so we're about ready to sit right here and go through a slide about how important communication is. We're gonna watch some graphs in a second that say the number one most important thing for a person to have higher morale in their job was communication. And you start thinking, well, why is he making it such a point that communication is never the problem? And what he taught me, and it took me a while to figure out, but what he taught me was communication is the manifestation of a problem. So if we have a lack of communication, we have some other problem that's causing the lack of communication. So by focusing on communication techniques, we're often missing a layer below that onion that is the real problem. And so I really encourage you, your personal life, in your professional life, and everything, if you think you have a communication problem, peel the onion back another layer. Start to figure out, why do we have a communication problem? Well, I don't really like you that much. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Why don't you like me? Well, you're ugly. Okay, well, I can't think about that. But you start figuring out, what can we actually do to solve these problems? Because that's really where your situation's at.
The root cause.
Yeah. And so often it's just communication. Now, clearly, especially in a leadership role, my interpersonal skills are important. I'm not discounting those, and communication is one of those. And I just touched on, I gave the example of you didn't get enough direction, you kind of got thrown to the wolves, okay? And you could say, well, as a leader, I don't communicate well enough. Okay, that might be, but why didn't I communicate? Well, I was busy. I'm crazy busy. So, okay, so now we've really we're an understaffed, undermanned situation, right? So we don't really have a communication problem. If I had the proper amount of time, I would have fully communicated to you. But because I'm frantic and you're frantic, we didn't connect, right? So
That kind of happened to me. I was always bitter at my superiors for not communicating. Then when I was thrown into that position, it's like, how do I respond to 500 emails when I'm on the floor going?
yeah, no, you're exactly right. So I'm teaching this team lead course, and because I've never worked one day out there, but I've worked and understand leadership. And the thing I would tell them, and I'll tell you as well, is the challenge with leadership is it is not inside your job description. So what happens is these businesses put together a team lead job description, and their job is busy all day. And on top of that, now they're supposed to provide leadership. And you start going, when am I going to be able to do that? We're going to do that on your own time. If you want to be an effective leader, you're going to get used to working longer than the people you're leading, because you're going to have no time to actually be the leader you want to be and still get your day job done. And so part of the system being broken is that even if we're training our leaders properly, we're not giving them time that it takes to actually interact with the people they're trying to lead and get to know them and motivate them and keep cohesion, all the things that you want, they don't have time to do. And then if they don't go in to that process realizing that, one, they're going to fail, and two, even if they succeed, they might be resentful, because now they're saying, look, you're paying me for 8 hours here and I'm killing myself, and so I think that becomes really critical to be aware that if you get into a leadership role, it ain't gonna be fair. It just isn't anymore. And it's not just at this company or that company, it's just everywhere I've seen it. To be a really good leader is gonna require a lot of time that you don't have. So it's the way it works. Sorry about the bad news, but.
And we're in a leadership course right now.
Yeah.
He's like, this thing's a crapshoot, Bill, right now.
No, well, you gotta have that mentality. What you have to get, I think, for it to work, is you have to get intrinsic reward of doing that leadership for the people that are working for you. That will be enough payment of itself. When this guy reaches his best version of himself, and you knew you played a small role in that, and that gets you like a good warm and fuzz on the inside, well, that's the payment that I got for doing that. It's not in my checkbook. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
And if you don't want to do that, then you can still be in a leadership role. You will not continue to advance probably, but you can stay in your leadership role and just do the bare minimum like every other leader that's at the place. Does that make sense? It's all about your expectations of yourself and what you want to do. So what are some of the communication techniques I've touched on before? Big into empathetic listening. Listening not just to understand the content the person is saying, listening to actually feel what they're feeling. Empathetic listening is very powerful because it's humbling. So as you're sitting there listening to somebody, and if you're really engaged, you're going to start to hurt if they're hurt. And you're going to be excited if they're excited, and you're going to really be engaged, and they're going to know that. And just that listening, I don't say a word, I don't solve one problem, nothing. But if they feel that, it builds trust. And in a leadership environment, trust is your only currency you have. I mean, you can use your power card, but you want to try to hold off using that as much as you can. So empathetic listening is really important. I always called them learning opportunities. Come up with whatever name you want, so it doesn't sound like reprimand or punishment or you failed. It's a learning opportunity, and if you can create a culture with your staff where you can jump in at any moment you hear or observe a learning opportunity and not have them get defensive, right? One, those exchanges are going to go a lot faster because you're not going to have those extra minutes to get them to calm down and realize, look, I'm not attacking you. You know, you're not getting fired. I'm not calling you out in front of everybody else. I'm just trying to give you a chance to learn something here. And if you can deliver those learning messages in a way that isn't threatening to them, man, now they're going to get better. And now you're going to come to them and they're going to like, yeah, I know. And what I always start with mine is I would say, walk me through the decision you just made. Okay? And when you do the first time, they're going to be really slow and they're going to be awkward and they're not going to know what to say. Man, you do several of these and they get really quick. They're like, well, I thought about this, and I thought about that, and I knew I couldn't do that, so I decided that. I go, okay, great, stop right there. Did you think about this and this? No, I didn't think about that. Well, do you see how those could be connected? Oh yeah. Okay. If you know that now, would you change your decision? Yeah, I probably would. Okay, great. Next time, think about those things. And you're done, and you're on. And yet they're going, okay, he cares, and he's not just tearing me down, you know, so being able to communicate those learning opportunities. We touched on asking employees what's important to them. Nothing worse than giving somebody the $200 check and all they need was a Jelly of the Month club. Or vice versa. What do you guys think about social media at work? Kind of torn on this myself personally. Firm no policy, you can't be on social media when you're at work, or leave it up to the individual, or somewhere in the middle. What do you mean?
Does it benefit the work or
You own the company, okay? You gonna make me a policy where I can't be on social media when I'm on your dime?
Are you working? Are you doing work on your phone, on social media?
No.
Oh, no.
So I can't blow off some time on my social media while I'm on your dime.
When you're on break?
Okay? So I can now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can have social media, I just have to do it when I'm on break.
Or whenever you have time.
Okay?
You're not wasting my money on it.
Okay?
If you're fully satisfying your job,
Okay?
sure, but I think that always carries over. There's never, you know what I mean, like I'll have one buddy that's sitting at a door waiting on a trailer, just staring at the door on his phone all day. And it's like, well, you know, we're 4 people down today, could you put that away and come over here and help us out? Because we're all grasping the straws how to catch up. Well, this is my job. Okay, and I try to encourage him. I said, this is what you're gonna do at 55. You're gonna be standing out a dock door, you know what I mean? Hopefully you have a 401k by then. That's how I try to belittle him, but I was like, we gotta think for something future.
Yeah.
Is this as far as you wanna go in life?
Yeah.
We kinda got into a little heated discussion at work on lunch. He's like, well, I got an old lady and we're attacking and we're going on cruise. I'm like, well, what's the savings account like? What's the future hold? I mean, are you happy right now? So, I'm kind of spinning off, but like I said, if you're fully satisfied, but I think it always carries over. So, I would say my company on break, sure, but we got a supervisor right now. It's a zoo back there. As long as your job's done, you'll go up. There's people talking on the phone. I mean, if our bigwigs walk through there, it's gonna get chewed out. I mean, it's not a social club.
So that's one of the downsides of it. If I allow it, and kind of where Dave was heading at is, what are the parameters then? Do I need to set some parameters? And then if I do set parameters, can I enforce those parameters, right? Or is it just easier to go, no, you can't have it at all? But then I think you get some real downside to saying, no, you can't have it at all either. You know, because it's kind of like the parenting thing, right? Where you just say, no, you can't do it. Well, now they're curious of what it's all about, and they want to do it because you've told them they can't, and you know, so it can be complex. Here's at the real basic level, I think it comes down to leadership strategy of command and control, or a leadership strategy of empowerment and develop. And I believe in empowering and in developing people. And in doing so, we're gonna get a little bit of abuse here and there, and we're gonna have somebody screw up. You know, who's gonna actually say something out on our Facebook page that maybe isn't the right way or the best way we could have said that. But if we have a mechanism for going back and teaching that person and developing that person and getting them better at it, I still think that's a better route to go than command and control, which is saying, we don't trust you, so you can't be a voice for our business, and we're gonna hover over you and make sure that you're not. Right, so that I don't like going down that path. And even though it's just social media, I think it's emblematic of those choices that you have to make as a business.
So I think we're kind of touching on two things. Now, when it comes to you commenting on our company or promoting our company, I don't want that at all. Now, if it's positive, sure. Anything negative, bring in-house, let's talk about it. And that might be like socialism, or that might be communism, right? That might be something next level, but you know what I mean? I had a guy all the time that was up from 3 o'clock on probably cocaine or something, saying all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, why don't you just bring it in-house? Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
your performance is what's affecting how you're getting treated. People who perform better don't get mistreated as much.
Yeah.
I think personally.
Yeah, so I think we're still talking about the same thing though. So the question is, as a company policy, do we prohibit you from doing that? And we put it in your contract, and then when you do that, we fire you for posting something negative. Right? That's reasonable, we could do that, right? Or do we say, you know what? We can't really avoid anything negative being said. We're gonna have a mechanism for responding to it both publicly and responding to it privately. And that mechanism is gonna involve having a really strong corporate culture that people trust us. Mm-hmm. And this person is now a minority. They are now split off from the herd. They've split themselves off from the herd. And we're gonna trust our culture to bring that person back in. And like you said, bring it in-house and let's actually solve the problem. Or we're gonna weed that person out, you know? And yes, in that meantime, we're gonna have some bad stuff thrown out in the public for us. I still think that's better than setting a tempo day one you hire in and I go, I don't trust you, sign that, say you're not gonna say anything about me. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir, I agree.
It's risky, I get it, and you're gonna have some mistakes.
Putting a lot of faith in your culture is what, I mean,
It's a chicken and egg though, right? So how do we get that culture of trust and empowerment built if we ain't the first ones to step out and go, all right, I'm vulnerable here, but we're gonna work at this.
So then you would be like, I don't respond to any allegation, you know, to an extent, like, well, if you give freedom of opinion, freedom to exposure, then my whole stance is I don't respond, you know what I mean? I wouldn't respond, that's your opinion.
Yeah, if it's negative, that may be exactly your choice. As a company, you might say, you know, we're not gonna engage here. That whole extinction behavior, right? We were talking about examples where not engaging at all might actually get rid of the problem. You know, and so that's maybe our exact solution is when there's says something negative, we just ignore it. And yet we do all of our in-house channels, which includes your peers going, dude, what were you doing? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, that don't make no sense. Well, I was just mad. Well, you need to go down and take that post down. And now that supervisor never even got involved. Mm-hmm. That's really the ideal.
Yes, sir.
You know, and so you think of like, you know, in a football analogy, the Patriots get a lot of press for how strong their culture is and how they get these reject football players who've had attitude problems and different problems, and they come in and toe the line. Well, it's just culture,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, so the 24 access to the phone, like I love it majority of the time, but like I was on call for 24/7 for like 17 years. So like I'm gonna answer, I've answered the call, I've answered the most bizarre calls you've ever gotten in the most bizarre places you could take them. You know, talking to the police in the shower, you know, the whole bit. So there's a balance to be had, right? It's hard to shut off when you gotta just put it in your pocket and take it with you, you know? But man, I can tell you there's a tons of times too, you're standing in line for groceries and so grateful you got something you can do productive right there with you. So it kinda, I think everybody's different. You gotta find your own balance there. All right, here's what I like. I told you we'd come back to some of these benefits that you can provide that don't cost a ton, and yet for some people are far more motivating than a bonus or an annual check or whatever. So I love the company events or teams. Like when you can get out get your group out, whether you're having a beer or you're doing a picnic or, you know, birthday cake, you know, something. I think that team cohesion, that team camaraderie, that excitement over, I bought her by Chick-fil-A. It's like, okay, that wasn't very expensive. And everyone's like all buzzed out because they got to leave early or whatever and they got Chick-fil-A, you know. It's like those kind of small rewards can go a really long way and don't cost you a bunch of money. Flexible scheduling, I just told you, like, you know, hey man, if you're gonna miss, can you do your job from home? And I'd be like, hey, how much do you have, I can work a full day, or really I only got about a half day's of work that I can do at home, but I'll work another half day on Saturday from home. Okay, cool, and you just trust them to, you know, make that work. So didn't cost you really anything other than just having that conversation and trusting your employees. I love anytime you can give them a benefit where you're getting Uncle Sam's pocket. So child care, where you can pay for your child care with pre-tax dollars. There's all kinds of health savings accounts you can do with pre-tax dollars. I love all of those because all it does is take you a little time to set up. Doesn't cost you any more money, and yet it's a benefit to them where they can now pay child care with, you know, I mean, so if you're in the 25 or 30% tax bracket, it's pretty good chunk of dough. So look for all those opportunities, and again, sometimes just saying thanks. Sometimes really being humble in front of somebody and going, man, we couldn't have done that without you today. And they're like, awesome. You know, I am awesome today.
I always say we should have a pitch in once a week at my job.
Yes.
A pitch in, I'm telling you, we are all family, we are
Yes.
all good. The next day we're scratching each other's eyes. I mean, but a pitch in where everybody's good, everybody's up there eating, everybody's talking, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, it's a whole different atmosphere.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
It's crazy. I didn't know you guys liked each other. You guys talk bad about each other all day, but at Thanksgiving, you guys are sitting at the same table just having a grand old time.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I totally agree.
Crazy.
You know, and I think that's where, you know, and there's a whole two different philosophies on, you know, getting a beer with your coworkers or your whole team. And, you know, trust me, I've done it right and wrong. You know, I had too many beers with my team. But same sort of thing. A lot of times you get out of the workplace and in a social setting, and people are different. And, you know, sometimes they're willing to say something maybe they hadn't willing to say, and so you get some good feedback that way if you can be humble enough to take it. You know what I mean? But a lot of times it's just finding that commonality. You know, now you're forced to stand there and talk to somebody. I'm gonna figure out what you like and I like, and we can talk about something. And sometimes that goes a long way towards that team cohesion. So I think there's a lot of ways you can get it done. Let's just kind of talk about team. And so when you're doing teamwork, some of the things that you need to keep in mind. I think the biggest thing is roles and responsibilities. Just like that's part of the value of you guys doing a team presentation. Is one of the challenges just figuring out, well, what are you going to do, or what am I going to do, and is that equitable? And are you good enough to do your part? Am I good enough to do my part? And you know, so that's kind of what it's talking about here. So here's the open communication. So my I don't think he'd be dead yet, but my instructor is probably pained right now. 48% says open communication is what's best for morale. Going from my approach, you don't ever have a communication problem. We're missing a bunch of stuff right here, aren't we? Why don't we have open communication? Well, we got a command and control environment, so we say only the minimum. We're not trying to teach anybody anything. Or we don't trust them, so we're not going to disseminate information because they can't handle it. Right? That's kind of how our government treats us, right? We're not going to give you all the information because you guys can't handle it.
Too much transparency could be a bad thing, especially if you're in a bad mood. You could say some stuff that you regret later.
Well, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different. So now so what would that problem be? So that if we're not open and communicating because we are fearful of being offensive, now we have an emotional intelligence problem, right? So our leadership has not been trained with enough emotional intelligence to be able to handle their day and also then lead these crazy people.
Like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah, and he is interesting because, one, you could say that he doesn't have a filter and just says whatever he wants to say. I think you make an equally strong argument that it's all just a game to him. It's all just tactical.
I think a portion of it is, but I also think it just
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
really.
I think he lacks the ability to accept information from other people.
yeah.
I mean, when I said come in, if he doesn't talk, we're good.
Which you knew that wasn't gonna be the case, yeah.
That's the thing, if he stays off Twitter.
Yeah.
Everything is fine, but he wants to get out there and he's a businessman, he's not a politician, he's not a career politician, he's not educated on world policies, he's not real
Yeah.
educated on, the ISIS or whatever it may be, yeah. Because if he has these advisors that he allows to dictate where his decisions go, you ask him a question on his own, and it's off to the races. I mean, grab onto something, you
Yeah.
know what's coming.
Yeah, yeah. The thing. Like, I'm not a Trump supporter. I didn't vote for him, but the thing I do like about it is my hunch is the presidency will never be the same again
No.
after him, whether he's in it or not. The whole use of Twitter and going directly to the public and telling the other lawmakers, I don't care about you. That's a different strategy than anybody's ever had, and it's like he's misusing it, I think, in a lot of ways, but it's kind of like the toothpaste out of the tube sort of thing. I'll be shocked if the next president doesn't do something similar, where he's not relying on mass media to get his message out. He's going to say, I'm going right to my people, It's interesting.
Oh, it's interesting, sorry, this is kind of off topic.
Yeah.
That Barack and Obama are now making movies
Yeah.
for Netflix. I thought that was, like, the whole demographic of presidency and ex-presidents, former presidents.
Yeah, it used to be once you left, you went in retirement, no one ever saw you again.
It's completely
Yeah.
changing. It's a very interesting time.
Yeah, it is. Well, and same with Netflix. You talk about a whole nother media platform
Yeah.
that wasn't available to, Clinton and some of these other people. It's a whole nother way to get my message directly to people without having to rely on the ABC mothership to air my stuff, It's just different. Interesting here too, before we go on, look how small morale is connected to money. And again, what I would say is go back to hygiene factors, right, in Herzberg's theory. This is probably an absence of money. So they're feeling underpaid. And if they're underpaid, morale does go down. What I would tell you is if everyone was paid appropriately, not rich, paid appropriately, then there was equity, then that number would even be smaller. I like the unexpected rewards. I was a big one. I cheesed about the jelly of the month, but the one I gave a lot were a car wash, little Mike's Car Wash, little coupon things. I love giving those away because they're like, what, $45 or something like that, and they get like 6 car washes or something. So I get the initial hand them, oh, thanks, man, I love it, But then they get reminded I gave them that on 6 occasions. You know what I mean? And so at little $5 increments, I'm getting a little, nice job, man, you rock, when they're completely on their own and wherever. So I like that kind of stuff. So what's bad? I would agree on the failure to recognize achievement, which I would then connect right back to excessive workloads. Now, there's other reasons that bosses don't say, hey, nice job. One of them is the boss is insecure. So a lot of times bosses don't want to say, hey, nice job, because they don't want to feel like they've lost some amount of power. And I'm not sure they're even conscious of that, but subconsciously they're often holding their cards back here because they don't want to look like you're really important and I need you and I'm vulnerable and you're powerful and I'm not, and they overthink all that or don't even think about it. But I think that's a lot of what's present a lot of times where you don't say good job to someone. But another big chunk of it is I'm just so busy, is that I don't take the time because I got all these 5 other things I need to get done. And I really, really encourage you to make that time, because it just, when you think about, and if I can get you to believe that the currency of leadership is trust. So I have to find every way possible to build trust with the people that I'm working with if I want to be an effective leader with them. And I talked about empathetic listening being one way to build that trust, but humbling yourself and saying nice job to someone is another way to build trust. And so you can't find enough ways to build that trust, right? Because it's just hard, because you got to do your day job all day. But really, as a leader, what I'm trying to do is to build this trust reservoir with you. Stephen Covey calls it emotional bank account. I want to make deposits in this emotional bank account so we have this currency so that when I do need you to do something, you're like, yeah, I got you. And I'm not having to pull out my power card and be like, look, I am your boss, so just do that. Right? You don't want to play that card. You want to hold on to that one. Play the others you got, you know? And so, trying to recognize people is good. Micromanaging, I think it happens sometimes. I think it's a lot, you can still micromanage and make them feel like you're not up in their business quite as much, you know, especially if you are truly worried about their results. Now, if you're micromanaging because you're just a control freak, well, that's kind of on you. But if you got somebody who really just, you're really worried about their quality and their ability to do their job, you kind of got to be up in their business a little bit.
I see it in stressful times at work, like when when senior management's barking down, management's neck, you know, then obviously they're like over frantic, like what are we doing wrong, and barking out orders to load this trailer or to do all these little things. It's like, that's a normal process for us. We don't need you
Yeah.
to express that. Like that's a day in, day out.
Yeah.
She just doesn't know which avenue to go down.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like things like we were talking about earlier, her allowing us to like bicker and fight and work it out, she's great at that. Or giving praise, she's good at that. But I
Mhm.
think you get so bottled up because you don't really know your.
Well, if her boss is on her, then she's also thinking, I gotta do something different,
Yeah.
right? Because they wouldn't be yelling if the same was gonna be okay.
Mhm.
So now it could be an appearance thing too. I gotta get up, I gotta walk around, I gotta get louder in my voice, and I gotta do something because they don't want my normal routine today.
Okay.
So I think some of it's just an image thing too.
Yes, sir.
And then she gets just rattled and probably can't quite rein it in,
Mhm.
you know? And doesn't have her own confidence to look back at her boss and say, we got this,
Yeah.
you know? So, it can be tough. Again, just looking at some different businesses here, and then they're gonna get us into some cultural differences. So high context, where the relationship and the group actually is increasing performance. Low context, no, those just provide a distraction. I mean, I believe we're a high context culture. I think we believe that relationships are gonna help us get stuff done. But I think there's a lot more, especially in the Asian communities, low context, what they prefer. Yeah, I mean, it's just pointing out that as soon as you go cross culture, you've got now a whole nother issue that you gotta learn, things you gotta come up to speed on, norms you need to know, new roles, so it's just a lot more complex, obviously. And then here we get into the actual motivating across generations. I don't personally like this too much. I think it's oversimplification. I think it's really hard to predict how a single person is going to behave and be motivated based on when they were born. I think that the little basic little things they're putting out here, okay, are maybe true, but I don't know that it affects people's motivations on a one-to-one basis. So like I was 71, so I'm a Generation X. I didn't have a dual career family. I didn't go to daycare. And I don't feel insecure about my job. So it's not an exact science.
Has to, individual put this content out has to be from baby boomer era. They seem to get a lot of praise in this, but they seem to be glorified at the very top, like, ah.
Well, that's why that's the only reason have you seen, you got to get a notice the number of like adult daycare, adult assisted livings that are being built. I mean, just keep an eye out when you're driving around now. I mean, those things are getting thrown up nonstop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, if the baby boomers live a long time, probably in good shape. But if those guys start dropping off, there's gonna be some idle capacity.
Yeah.
We have some college kids moving in and be like, yeah, I'll live here if you'll cook for me and bathe me every Tuesday. I mean, I'm good, So yeah, I don't really get into this too much, the whole generational ones. So they give us more. So these are, I relate to these a little bit more. As far as me being a Generation X person, I do emphasize output over number of work hours. I don't necessarily need you to sit in front of your screen for 12 hours to convince me you're a good worker. It's about output. But again, I think this is some oversimplification here. Are you a millennial, Dave?
Yeah.
Andy's match up with you at all? High value and work-life balance.
A lot of it.
What's that?
A lot of it.
A lot of it does.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm not a big meeting person. All right, that's a wrap. So I'll close down this video. Again, that, you know, there's not an assignment connected to that TEDx, but it's worth checking out. So you want to check out that TEDx. And then, Ryan, if you want to get out, you can get out. And then if you guys want to do a little bit of Learn Smart for now, and then we'll get you